All right, everybody, welcome back. Good late morning, and it is time to dive into the 2026 NFL Draft. And if you've been on this channel for a couple years now, you guys know how I do the draft around here. I try to cover as many players as possible, and what that means is you're often a little bit more shallow. So I'm not going to be spending whole videos talking about one player and doing film study. Film study is something that I've tried to do in the past, and for one reason or another, just doesn't work out for me. YouTube just takes it down. So I'm not going to get into any of that. I'm just going to talk. I'm going to talk about these players. Now, this video, this one video, will be focused on one player because it's the first video. So, on top of discussing this one player, who, by the way, the Seahawks have no chance of being able to get, I want to walk through kind of the process of how I will be discussing these players. So follow along. We'll get to the end, and then all future videos will discuss at least some as many as four players, and we will be able to sort through basically everybody that I would consider to be likely to be drafted at this point in time. So let's open it up. We're starting with running back because to me that's one of the most interesting positions for the Seahawks in this draft. And we're going to start with the top dog, Jeremiyah Love. Again, not a guy we're going to draft because he's going to be long, long gone. Notre Dame running back, 21 years old. And by the way, when I put the age, but sometimes I can't find the age, in which case I'll just say I don't know. Sometimes I have to estimate the age based off limited information. But I always try to put the age that the player will be on September 1st. So, I mean, I've done so many of these lately, I don't remember. Maybe Jeremiyah Love is 20 years old right now, but I decided to put him as 21 because he'll be 21 when he actually is playing NFL football, is the idea. So just something to keep in mind. But the first row here, the first line under his name are his combine measurements. And for different players, that means different things. So 6 feet tall, that's 6 feet tall. 71st percentile. What that means is when you compare Jeremiyah Love to all the running backs that have gone through the combine over the last, I think it's like 26 or 27 years, he is in the 71st percentile, which means he's a good deal above average, but not comically so. Weight, 212 pounds. That is 38th percentile. So that would mean he's a little bit below the typical weight of a combine running back over the last 26, 27 years. 32-inch arms, so that's 83rd percentile, and 9 and an eighth inch hands, 37th percentile. So that's the top. And context matters, right? I think that running backs over the last couple of decades have gotten smaller. So therefore, 212 in the grand scheme of things over the last almost 3 decades is pretty small. But compared to modern running backs, if you just take a look at running backs in the league right now, it's probably closer to the middle, maybe even a little bit higher. So context matters. Same with the combine performance. And Jeremiyah Love only did one event, so we only have one event to talk about. But the 40 time, 4.36, which is 95th percentile, so one of the fastest times for a running back ever, and a 1.55 10-yard split, which is just the first 10 yards of his 40, 70th percentile. Now, again, context matters. Running backs over the last almost 3 decades have gotten faster. So a 4.36 20 years ago would have been jaw-dropping, but a 4.36 now is still extremely good, but it's a little bit more like just really, really good rather than just like, oh my God, that guy just broke the scale. And you have to keep this in mind for other players as well. Linebackers used to be a lot bigger. So it depends on the position, but the idea is 40 time is speed, 10-yard the 10-yard split is acceleration. So what we can glean from this is that Jeremiyah Love is really fast, but his acceleration might be more just good rather than anything amazing. Then we take a look at big boards. So we look at 7 major big board publications and see where Jeremiyah Love is ranked on all of them. Pro Football Focus has him 4th, Tankathon has him 10th, ESPN has him 3rd, CBS has him 16th, the Draft Network has him 5th. Let me Hold on one second here. Okay, that gives us a little bit more room on screen to play with, so that's a little bit better. But yeah, the Draft Network has him fifth, Walter Football has him second, and the aggregate database, which is basically taking every big board of some credence on the internet and combining them together into one big board, has him ninth. So basically, this gives us an idea of where the player ranks in the minds of the experts, and it allows us to frame the objective value based on the experts of the player. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that I'm not doing all of these write-ups at the same time, and big board shift, especially the aggregate. So sometimes a player will move, like Jeremiyah Love at ninth here. By the time you go to the mock draft aggregate database and look, he might be in sixth because things move quickly. But it just captures the snapshot at the time that I happen to put it together. So keep that in mind. These things are very fluid. So those are your big board rankings. And then I try to capture his last 2 years of production, the player. If the player missed a year due to injury or barely did anything 1 year, then I won't look at that. But basically trying to get the last 2 years of production. So Jeremiyah Love, 199 attempts, almost 1,400 rushing yards, 18 rushing touchdowns, average 6.9 yards per carry, and 27 catches for 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's 10.4 yards per reception, PFF grade of 93.1. And then 2024, you can see the numbers slightly less, although similar efficiency. And it just gives an idea of how productive the player was in college, right? So we can look at this and say that Jeremiyah Love was very productive the last 2 years. One of the most productive backs in football, had almost 2,500 rushing yards, and he had 500 receiving yards. So that's 3,000 yards of production, and what is that? 40 touchdowns. So compares very well to anybody you can care to stack up with him. So then we get into a list of pros here. These are just, as I perceive it, the things about the player that are good. In the case of Jeremiyah Love, he's got speed to burn and burst through the hole. I think that speaks for itself. He's somebody who, if he gets in a foot race, he's probably gone. The production matches the talent. This is not a scenario where the guy's really talented, but he never really put it all together. No, this is a guy who produced at a very high level. He stays upright through contact and squeezes out extra yards. Obviously, he's not a true power back. He's not somebody who's going to be able to just bowl a bunch of defenders over, but he understands how to survive contact with good balance and make sure he at least falls forward, and he will break through things like arm tackles and hits that aren't flush. He's a good pass catcher. He's someone who you can count on to catch passes out of the backfield, and you can even line him up at receiver, which is something that Notre Dame did. He runs good routes. He can actually run receiver routes, and he can run routes out of the backfield. So you're getting a little bit of a bonus there. Good ball security, does not fumble very much. So you're getting somebody who is going to reliably keep the ball. And then the next paragraph are just the cons. These are the issues that I see with the player that can either get better or maybe just have to be lived with. May not be capable of handling bell cow back duties because when he was at Notre Dame, he was in a timeshare backfield. And you can see, even 2025, how many touches did he have? Less than 200 carries, 27 catches. That's 226 touches. That's some pretty good load management. So this might not be a guy you want to put the whole world on. At 212 pounds, he's not small. He's not big either. You may want to put this guy in a timeshare, which most running backs are like that. But I don't think you're getting Gentil here. Dances a little too much in the backfield. I do think that there's a little bit of a lack of decisiveness, and sometimes he doesn't hit the hole as hard as he should. He doesn't have a lot of power. He's not great in short yardage situations. I do see that as being an issue, and that's probably something that you can't really fix at this point because he's not a power back, and you got to live with that. And his agility does leave a little something to be desired. I don't think he's going to do a lot of things in open space. I don't think he's going to be able to do a lot of stuff in terms of creativity. And Jeremiyah Love, just understand that this is kind of a one cut and go guy most of the time, and he can survive contact, but he's not a true like Barry Sanders elusive dude. He's not one of those. You got to know what you're getting here. He's a guy who cuts, and which makes him great for a scheme like this. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not hating on it, especially for this scheme, but understand you're not getting Barry Sanders here, I don't think. So my next paragraph is just the overall evaluation of the player based on all the information here. Doubtlessly the best running back in this class. Love feels somewhat emblematic of this year's crop of rookies just not being that strong. And I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but when you compare Jeremiah Love as a prospect to Bijan Robinson or Ashton Gentil, it's or I'm sorry, I think I'm pronouncing Gentil's name. It's Gentil, right? So Gentil, I don't think it's as good. I think those guys brought a little bit more to the table, especially Bijan. I don't think Bijan left something to be desired with his agility in the way that I look at Love and see. So I don't think he's on that level. He's still very highly covetable, and in this draft class, he is a top 10 player. I would put him in the lower part of the top 10 personally. I think you can do better, especially because of relative positional value, but I think he deserves to go in the top 10, and I think he should, and I think that he will. So Jeremiah Love, great prospect. No hate, but I don't think he's generational the way that I thought Bijan and Gentil might have been. And I don't know if those guys were generational, but I think they're better prospects than Love. And Love is great. Like, don't get it twisted here. That 40 time definitely got my attention. Okay, so that's how this works. We'll do another video in a couple of hours, and then we're off to the races until we're out of running backs to talk about, and then we move on to another position. So, future evaluations are going to go a lot quicker, so be prepared for that, and see you guys soon. Go Hawks.